We're having some technical issues. Well, let me begin. First of all, thanks for coming. Welcome, everybody. As I've already been introduced, I won't do it again. But today we will be talking about Firebase analytics. What is Firebase? Firebase is an app solution. It's focused on apps, and it's a way to answer all the complexity and all the difficulties developers have when developing an app. So you have multiple platforms, numerous third-party trackers you have to implement, and everything means that you have to put more time, more effort, and more resources into developing an app. For instance, I have some clients, because I also work with app clients, who are investing very heavily on some of the features that Firebase offers for free. Okay. Ah, okay. Well, sorry for that. So what we'll be talking about today helps solve all the complexity that app developers face when building up a new app. What does this mean? This means that Firebase is a one-stop shop where developers and also business guys can have access to data and different features that we will be covering. Why is this important? It saves money, it saves time, and it also means that you won't have to develop as much to have most of these features. So the structure of the presentation will be the following. We will begin, as you can see, the core of Firebase is Firebase Analytics, where you can track everything from scratch without having to implement most of things. Afterwards, we'll also focus on different features, such as the grow ones, where you will be able to acquire new clients and re-engage with those that you already have. Furthermore, if you have an app where you want to put interstitials and ads from other people and monetize that way, you can also have that possibility without having to develop anything. And finally, we will cover some of the developed areas. The presentation will run for about 20-25 minutes, and afterwards, we will have time for some of your questions if you have them. And I won't be delivering you the presentation, but you have all the information you need in firebase.google.com. Okay? Afterwards, in the last slide, you have the URL. So here, for me, one of the most important things is that there are facts such as that for every 5 apps people download, they only open one app. So normally you would like that app to be yours, no? So with this, you will be able to do so. As I've told you, Firebase Analytics is the core solution of Firebase, and upon which everything is built upon. Here we have the main overview of the Firebase interface, where you can see the different apps you have. As a model, we will be having one of our demo products that is a game. And you can see that you have the iOS app and the Android app. So it works both for Android, for iOS, and also for web apps. When we go in deeper into the analytics dashboard, we can have a first overview of how users are behaving. You can select a period of time and see how many active users you have. And as I told you, it's also focused on the business. You also have metrics about average revenue per user, average revenue per purchasing user. Furthermore, you have some data on the user engagement, how they have behaved, if they're active during the day, for how many minutes. This is interesting to see if you have made any changes, if users are answering well to those changes. Also, you have data on which products are selling better. And always, the cool thing is that you have data on how it is behaving versus the previous period. So if people are buying more or less, and which products they're buying. Also, we have some information more for the development guys, including the app versions that are used and the devices. This is quite important. If we go into more depth and we go down, we will also have info on the demographics. So where the people are coming from, the users, which sex they are, the age range, and also their interests. So this can help you to personalize the experience, as we will see further on. When we go much more in depth, you can have events. You can see all the events. Firebase, as default, tracks some of the basic events. You don't have to code anything. But if you want to track specific events, such as achievement page viewed or the bingo call mistake made, you will be able to see the statistics on those events. So you have count, again, the percentage of variation versus the previous period. And if you've defined, you will have the value. Okay, if it's a purchase, you will be able to track the value. And how many users have carried that specific event, and also the variation. And for me, one of the coolest features is that you can mark as a conversion any of the events just by clicking on this button. So this is pretty useful. You don't have to code specifically for conversions. And if, for instance, we click on achievement page, we will be able to see the event count and also how it has been varying versus the previous period. It's on top. Here you can see the dotted line. That would be the previous period. And also how many users, how many events per users, and if we had defined the value. Okay? And again, event location and event demographics. If we define specific events for some demographics, we will be able to see everything there. Afterwards, one of the things that we've also created is audiences. Audiences, if you're familiar with different analytics tools, you will have heard about segments. It's the same thing. Here you can have some basic segments or audiences that are predefined, all users, purchasers, and afterwards you can define your own audiences that you will use further on for notifications and different features. Once again, you click on one of the audiences and you can see their behavior. What has their activity been, how many users you have and the growth, the average revenue per user, which version they're using, and also their interests. Attribution is one of the core things that we wanted to answer. The cool thing about Firebase is that it's not only focused on Google attribution. With dynamic links, you can attribute all the other channels, such as Facebook and other apps flyer. So you will be able to have loads of information. And again, you have the number of events. In this case, it would be the first open, if you don't see it well. And the lifetime value of those users who have performed that particular event. So for lifetime value, in this case, what we do is track all the revenue these users generate in time. So here we can see the chart growing in time. And if we click on lifetime value, we will be able to see this chart in big. And once again, if you're familiar with analytics, you will be able to choose different attribution models and see which of the channels was the one that contributed more for that event to happen. And also how many of these have purchased, the revenue they've generated, and their aggregated lifetime value. Funnels is also a way to see where people are failing to continue in the app. So, for instance, in this case, it's just about tracking the tutorial completion. We have to see if users have completed our tutorial. And we see that only 45% of those who began the tutorial completed it. So probably here we have something to do, and we can work on the user experience to improve this. Now we've seen most of the features of analytics. Sorry for that. Let me mention briefly cohorts. Cohorts are focused mainly on user retention. For app developers, the app not being used is one of the main issues that they have. So with cohorts, what you will be able to see is the group of people who began to use your app on a particular week and what percentage of them continued to use it in the following weeks. And that way you can say if you've made a change in the app, if this has been well accepted by users or not. And finally, user properties helps you define very precise and event-based audiences. It's one step further than the normal audiences, and this will help you filter and create specific notifications and everything, even further. Now we've seen the main analytics part, and we will go into the grow part. Sorry. I don't know if you're familiar with dynamic linking. Dynamic linking, basically, what allows you to do is to create specific URLs that take you to one screen inside your app. This is pretty useful, for instance, when users download for the first time the app. Maybe you want to show them the tutorial, or maybe you want to show them a specific promotion so they convert to premium. In this case, we can see that for all users without dynamic linking, you would have a common screen, and with dynamic linking, you can take them directly to a specific screen that you want them to see. This always improves user retention, signups, because users feel the need to have more and more a personalized experience. Invites, on their part, is a free way of targeting new users. Normally, I think that when you receive something from a colleague, from a friend, you're always much more closer to converting than if it's a cold start. Here you can create specific sponsored or not invites in which users can invite other users. Currently, it's only working with SMS and email, but we're working on including other platforms. And once again, if you want to personalize the landing experience, you can do so with dynamic linking. I think that notifications, at least for me, is one of the most powerful tools and features that Firebase has. As I told you before, I have clients who work with an app. All their business is built upon the app, and they have loads of issues and costs with third-party trackers that allow them to do push notifications. Well, this is completely free. You can do notifications with Firebase through the Firebase interface and send personalized notifications to different audiences. So it's really a nice feature. Now we'll see a demo. This is how the interface looks when you want to create a notification. You have the text, afterwards the delivery date, and one of the features that the Firebase developers are most proud of, the recipient time zone. Imagine that you have clients both in Spain and in the US. So you decide to send a notification at 9 a.m. to the Spanish people. If you didn't have this box, the people in the US would receive the same notification 6 or 9 hours before. So imagine you're sleeping and you receive a notification. The success rate of that notification will be close to 0. So with this, both areas and regions will receive the notification at a specific time. Afterwards, you can target by user segment or by topic. Imagine you have selected that you're interested in a specific topic, or by a single device. Here we would see users that are targeted for apps, only iOS, and audiences, those who are Australian purchasers. You can go one step further, and to measure the success rate, you can define one conversion. So in this case, what you would have is that the notification will track the in-app purchases. Also, you can set the priority, if it has sound or not, if in iOS you have a badge, and the expiration date. And afterwards, here you have an example of how a notifications campaign looks. You have the message, the status, if it's completed or not, the delivery date, the platforms in which it ran, and also the target estimate and the open rate. So you have here the sent notifications, how many were open, and how many conversions were triggered because of these notifications. And you have the dark blue bar, that is the Android app, and the clear blue bar, that is the iOS app. So you can see from a glimpse if the notification was successful or not. App indexing also comes as one of the standard features. It's totally integrated with Google Search. If you're not familiar with it, what it does is something similar to dynamic linking, but it's one step further. You do the whole app into screenshots that are indexed and that can be accessed through the search browser. Also, what this helps you is to improve the user experience, to take them to your app, and to have a better search ranking. Now we'll see a bit of a light touch of the earn part, where you have the AdMob by Google. Here you have an example of some of the type of ads you can see inside your app. So imagine you want to monetize within your app because you have loads of users, and it's a way of increasing your revenues. So you will be able to have different formats embedded within your app. Everything is completely integrated. I'm coming to the end, but I didn't want to miss the developer experience. So Firebase is really focused on helping developers. We've seen loads of features in which Firebase developers can leverage upon. So you have all the hosting and everything, but there are some cool ones that are a bit of a novelty that I wanted to tell you. Analytics is completely integrated with remote config. What's remote config? If you're familiar with tag managing and everything, this is sort of a tag manager for apps. So imagine you ask your developers to integrate a bunch of code, a code snippet into your app, and that way you will be able to make changes to the app through the interface. This is really powerful because only by using Firebase, without having to launch a new app version, you can personalize the experience or do A/B testing on a particular segment of users. Here we can see an example. For first-time visitors, you have a banner with a 15% off. Instead, if you have users who spend more than 10 minutes and didn't purchase, you offer them to become premium members. And finally, if you have really heavy purchasers who are interested in electronics, why not? Let's try to sell them some flat screens that are really expensive and profitable for you. So how does this work? You code and program, and you have this interface. The first thing you would do would be to define the conditions and who will be targeted, and by this remote config, these changes. In this case, you can see that there are the iOS users, Android. Here we have an A/B experiment targeting only 10% of the users, and afterwards Australian purchasers. And you define what you want to be modified in parameters. For instance, here we can see, as I was telling you before, this is a demo with a game. Okay, so we want to change the difficulty of the game with the time. We see that Australian purchasers have less time than the rest of users. Why this might be is to engage them more. They're good players. They need to be challenged. And afterwards, here we have the Canadian purchasers that when they reach level 3, you have, in the end, they don't finish it. So you can increase the time they have to perform the level 3. So this is a way of changing in real time, if they're connected to the internet, the user experience. Test Lab is also a real nice feature. It works for Android. So imagine you have an app and you want to test it before you ship it to all your users. This works with real devices. We have a bunch of Android devices that are connected in the data centers, and that allow developers to test their app in these devices. This comes at a cost. This isn't a free feature as the other ones that we've been seeing. But you don't have to have a specific test. You can do testing just by having an APK. And afterwards, you select the different devices you want to test the app upon. So here we have the Moto X, the Galaxy, the Nexus 5. And one of the nicest things is that when you click on one of them, you have an holistic view of all the screens that have been triggered in the app. And the logs. This is mainly for developers. So you can see all the logs that have been triggered. About crash reporting. This is also free, okay, and integrated with analytics. You will see how many users have been impacted by errors, the clusters of errors, and also the different codes that have failed. So this way you can do all the debugging. So, what's Firebase? Firebase is an SDK you have to implement in your app. It's totally cross-platform. It works with Android, iOS, with web apps, and also with hybrid apps. It's completely integrated with all the features that we've seen. And the good thing is that you can do all the tracking for free and out of the box. So it's a one-stop shop. So, in summary, it's free and unlimited. It works out of the box. You can do most of the tracking totally out of the box. It's seamlessly integrated with all the features. And as we've seen, it can help you grow your app by increasing your audience and by re-engaging with them. So now we have some time for a couple of minutes for questions, if you have any.
La gente habla inglés.
Hi, I have two questions.
Okay.
First of one is, you said that the service is completely free.
Yeah.
For example, in the push notification service, which is the limit of the platform. For example, in urban airship or other services like yours, you have a red limit. You can send 1,000 million of notification because at the end
There's no limit.
No limit?
No limit.
Okay.
In regard to the, also leveraging on your question, the roadmap for the notifications is to evolve them further. So you can do event-triggered notifications and focus them more even on audiences.
Okay. The second question is, as you know, at the beginning of the year, Parse, that is from Facebook, has shut down, and it's a service, a platform like yours. So I don't know, can you give confidence to the developers in order to move all their platform or the system to your platform? Because at the end, for example, in Amazon, you don't have all the dependency that you have in your system. So as a developer, for example, if you're going to start an app, what would you say them in terms of, okay, we're not going to shut down this for a long time, or the calls are not going to be modified?
I can tell you that the roadmap is pretty well structured, and that we have new features that we'll be launching for the next year and a half at least. So you can feel pretty confident that if you're an app developer, you will be able to have support on this. And well, I'm confident that it's a tool that is here to stay.
And regarding the crash tracking, is it possible to track crashes with JavaScript applications?
Yeah. So if you don't have any more questions, it isn't working. Well, it was just a thank you page with the firebase.google.com. There you will have access to videos explaining each one of the features. Here you have it, the firebase.google.com. And also you have documentation on how to implement everything. Okay, thanks for listening.
Pablo, big pleasure having you on stage.